Sure. Professor O'Neill, would you accept that there are some people that will have difficult deaths in relation to their end-of-life care? We had the Irish GP organisation last week, and they said 5 to 6% of those that die in the state will have quite difficult deaths. So do you accept that in them circumstances? No, we're not talking about assisted dying. We're talking about that people will have quite difficult deaths.
Death in general is difficult, can I say to you? So, and there's a range of perceptions around it, and a very telling article by 3 palliative care physicians based on the story of Tolstoy, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, talking about how the narrative is often told by the survivors. And it was based on a woman who preferred to have less pain control and less sedation, but her 3 children felt angry and disappointed that mother seemed to be in pain. But in fact, she was having autonomy and control. So we can't iron out every wrinkle, and I think
But you accept there is suffering.
Yes.
But you accept there is suffering in certain circumstances. Extreme suffering. Even though modern medicine can't ameliorate, that does exist. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure in your profession you've seen it.
I have seen challenging deaths all the way through, whether it's emotional, physical, or psychological. I've seen vast improvements in how people are being dealt with. And I mean, there are many challenging passages in life. And I think what we've got to keep in our mind is the therapeutic, supportive, hopeful.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I agree with you. But there are situations where people have very, very difficult endings, extremely difficult endings. And in that situation, I believe, and hopefully, I think the majority of people in actually Ireland believe, that in them circumstances, in very limited circumstances, somebody in that circumstance should have a say. Or they should have a say in how actually they die, right? Now, again, that's a fundamental right? And I think you would agree with that. Now, if somebody said to you, Professor O'Neill, I want to refuse all medication, all treatment whatsoever. Now, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the situation where somebody has done that, and that can be absolutely gruesome, really gruesome, in relation to refusing all sort of medical care because, they just don't want to go to the end of their life. So in that situation, what do you say to a person like that?
Yeah, the challenge is, as Dr. Chochinov said to you yesterday, or the last session, is that people wax and wane. So you get, at a moment in time, their thoughts towards, wanting to die and then not wanting to die. So actually, and predicting what's going to be difficult and what's going to be a challenge is actually very difficult. And, if we're to start thinking that over 40,000 people in Canada were all in intractable suffering that couldn't be treated, it really seems most unrealistic, unlikely, or 1 in 20 of the deaths in the Netherlands. So I think it is magical to think that this can be restricted. This is light switch, it's on or it's off, and it is
a very fallacious argument that if you introduce A, then B, C, D, and E will follow. Now, there is no evidence whatsoever. I mean, look at Oregon. Oregon's a very good example. Yeah. They had assisted dying for the last 28 years, and essentially the parameters have not changed whatsoever, right? Now, the other countries have slightly broadened their parameters, right? But it is a kind of red herring in relation to if we introduce A in Ireland, then B, C, D, and E, and F will want to avail of assisted dying. That is not the case. And it is kind of scaremongering in relation to if you put a piece of legislation in, then everybody will want it. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
To the chair, I think this is almost reducing it to absurdity, where nobody's ever saying everybody will want it.
Well, I tell you, sorry,
to the chair. Chair, may I respond to the chair, please? Thank you very much, Chair.
Just give me a chance.
Thank you very much. Oregon actually has changed its parameters, and I think what we don't want to get in is a kind of a Punch and Judy over this, but it's clear that anywhere that's over 10 years old has changed the parameters. And as been said before, that housing and finance then became key issues there, and they're the very things, I think, in a liberal, progressive society that we're trying to improve on. So, these things have changed in Oregon. In fact, I'm happy to provide a paper detailing to the committee the changes that Oregon has actually made in opening out the criteria.
I would dispute that now, I have to say.
Yeah. So I think it's what we've got to do, and again I go back to the collective wisdom of the Danish group and the Nordic countries. As a rule, have been prudent around this, and I think prudence is often the under-recognised virtue of what we do. If we had more prudence in the banks, we wouldn't have had a bank crash. And prudence is an awareness of the implications of what you're doing to yourself and to other people. And it's deeply imprudent to open out a negative, nihilistic way here. And I think what I would say is I've always seen a low threshold for a second opinion has always opened out doors. The support of palliative care and the growth in families and those around them. There are difficulties throughout life. Our role is to minimise them. It's not a perfect system, but doing something that further damages and aggravates is not helpful either.
Okay.